Zikomo, Zina Langa Dilexi. And this is what you should know. That little intro was in Chewa for those of you not in the know. Why Chewa? Because I recently received a lovely email from Chartable letting me know that for a brief, beautiful moment, What You Should Know Australia made it to the top 10 for true crime in Malawi in East Africa. I am honestly amazed. I had no idea that there were so many people listening. So, thank you. Thank you all so much for listening. It really does mean the absolute world to me. I do have one small request for all of you that are listening. However, whichever streaming service you are listening on, please leave a 5-star rating and a nice review if you can. It truly would mean so much to me. It truly would mean so much to me. But moving on, it is another Aussie movie review. Spooky edition because we are approaching Halloween. So, this is what you should know about Scare Campaign. Scare Campaign is a 2016 horror movie written and directed by Colin and Cameron Keynes, which was released on the 23rd of March at the Lion Festival Hallucinations Collective. But this wasn't a low-budget festival movie. It had at least one impressive name included. Megan Warner, who did hold a role on Disney's live-action TV show Once Upon a Time as Belle. This movie is honestly a little wild in how it is seen. On one hand, it holds a dismal 33% on Rotten Tomatoes. However, a respectable 5.8 out of 10 on IMDb. Awards-wise, it was nominated for Best Achievement in Sound for Film Design, but did not win. However, it didn't walk away empty-handed. At the Monster Fest Jury Prize, it managed to walk away with awards for Best Film, Best Director, Best Feature Screenplay, and Best Sound in a Feature. But we all know critics and awards don't stack up on how a viewer would see the movie. Unfortunately, for this movie, the only options I could find was to pay $4.99 to rent it through YouTube, Amazon Prime, or Apple TV. So I shelled out for it so you wouldn't have to. Unless, of course, you wish to watch it, in which case, schlock on. But at this point, I will be issuing a spoiler alert. From here onwards, I will be going through the storyline of the movie and pulling it apart, so abandon all hope from here. Open credits are a sketchy-looking CCTV shots from different rooms of a hospital and a car pulling up with a security guard walking towards the spooky-looking hospital. Belle is a female security guard in this situation, providing a basic handover to the new guard that we learn is named George. Belle does try to give him a heads up of the spooky aspects, including how the cadavers will sometimes sit bolt right up and some of the sounds have scared off previous guards. However, it was a lot for me at this one point where they did show a shot of a filthy medical saw with hair still attached. George then says that he's worked in security for a long time and you have to have a thick skin, and he does not believe in ghosts. They return to the main security station where he is shown the monitors and a pillow if he needs to sleep. He boldly states that he likes to stay awake for the whole shift, as if somehow disapproving. We then cut to a shot of the full moon over the hospital and a wolf howling, which turns out to be from a song playing on the radio. And funnily enough, George is asleep, but is woken up by a buzzer going off. You can see the hearse parked in the parking lot, and George buzzes them in and leaves, only to be met with a body bag on a gurney, which he then takes down to the morgue. The body then sits up, and George is legit like, "Are you alright?" Gingerly approaching, he unzips the bag to see an Asian lady looking very dead. But she then opens her eyes, and he utters the magic Australian words of shock and fear. "Jesus fuck!" And runs away to call Belle. Now, is Jesus fuck really an Australian sentence of shock and or fear? Yes. Yes, it is. I last said it when there was a massive spider in the bathroom. George looks back at the monitors to see that she is no longer in the morgue, and Belle is saying that he must be imagining things. As he tries to argue, he sees the dead woman peer through the window, and jumps to a different room to reveal that this is in fact a prank show, and that George is the unfortunate stooge. Not knowing this, he picks up a gun and Belle tries to warn the actor playing the ghost, but she no longer has her earpiece in and is setting up for her next scare, completely unaware of the danger she is in. We now find out that Belle is named M in this, and is now running down the halls to stop any shooting. The ghost actor then jumps out at George, screeching loudly. He lets out a yell that reminds me of Harold Zidler from Moulin Rouge, and then pulls out his gun. The ghost actor screams again, this time in fear, and M comes to save the day. She talks him down and takes the gun from him, where it turns out the gun is completely made from rubber, and George claims that he only has it to make him feel safe. It is now that the douche director comes out and gets the camera crew to focus on the fear piss stain on George, and M does the sign out of "You're on scare campaign." And just like that, George switches from afraid to excited as he's on a TV show that he knows of. We then jump to a young blonde called Abigail being interviewed. She gets asked if she's afraid of scary situations and horror movies, and she bluntly puts forward that she isn't, and is into how scary everything can be. She then gets asked to scream. Em walks in as Abby is letting out a long and ear-piercing scream. It is here that we learn that the douche director is named Marcus. M keeps trying to get his attention to discuss something, but keeps getting distracted by people trying to set up for the next prank. They finally get to the cut room, where the editor is showing a cut where he has done his best to get around the shots of George having a gun, trying to show that there was no danger. Finally, M gets annoyed and declares quite strongly that she quits. George having the gun was the final straw for her. Unfortunately, Marcus is a real douche and is saying that M is playing the character of the sensitive young actress quitting due to the incident and is now leaving a job that has kept her fed for 3 years, effectively trying to minimize her feelings regarding what was the close call. M points out that she is worried that they are likely to one day prank the wrong person, and she doesn't want to deal with that nightmare. However, Marcus then tries to change the subject and make it about her wanting to break up with him, where she then points out that they did months ago, even if there had been a few lapses since. He then starts sweet-talking her to try to keep her for at least the season final, and she agrees, only to stay for the season final, and then she is out. To which he then is like, yeah, you can return to the thriving world of community theatre, where she then points out that she's actually doing education. We then jump cut again, now to see the scare campaign crew in a conference room, where you can hear a power woman in the hall yelling at her phone while they discuss using the Glendale Asylum as their final shooting location, which closed down in the 90s. Vicky, the power woman, storms into the room and states that there is something that she needs to show them. The men in this room, however, are pigs, and one of them jokes around about it being her private photos before they get leaked onto 4chan, which is another one of those fun moments where it's like, yeah, this was written by boys. She says no and skips over their blatant rudeness and points out that it's a show called Masked Freaks that's online, where it shows alleged human sacrifice, and it looks fake, but then some show that they are wearing masks and have knives, and the murder then becomes real. M turns off the video and is understandably upset at the show of snuff. Vicky goes on to explain that the Masked Freaks started out as small, with cruel pranks harassing the homeless and starting fights, but are now going out into all-out brutal murder, and that the video she just showed was uploaded this morning and has gained more views than most things on the internet at that time. M asks if the authorities are going to do anything about it, but Vicky skirts the question, saying that they are a well-drilled and well-resourced group of sickos that seem to be quite hard to get a ping on. The crew realise that she seems to be trying to get a hold of these people and confront her about it, where she then points out that she doesn't like it, but they have 15 million subscribers, and it actually pays. She then tells them that Scare Campaign is losing its edge and they need to do better and bigger things by creating a darker and more dangerous vibe to make it feel more real. Marcus tries to speak up against it due to the recording session being 5 days out and that they aren't likely going to be able to get it up to what she wants. We now get shots of Glendale Asylum and the Nerve Center, Abby is getting ghosted up and Em is dressing up as a nurse and trying to be as supportive as she can for Abby. But Abby seems to be fine. Her concern for the young girl is obviously born of the prank that we first saw. Marcus is now doing a test run on the fluoro lights and he hears from the crew member known as Dick that the stooge is almost here. Em approaches and brings up her concerns again. And in a typical lapse, Marcus kisses her and a creepy laugh track goes off. Marcus regains focus and states that he wants it to go down the hole, and M suggests an echo filter for it. And Marcus is thrilled about the idea. With everyone getting everything ready, the excitement starts to build for it all to go ahead. Reviewing seeing old cameras, we see M affixing her wig, while Abby is watching something on YouTube and you can hear poorly done dubstep. She assures Abby that if anything goes wrong, she will call time and get her out, but Abby assures her that it's fine, trying to act tough about it, and says that Marcus said the best pranks are the ones that go a little off script. Em rebuttals that the only reason he says that is because nothing ever sticks to the script. It is at that point the stooge shows up, sooner than expected, and everyone gets called to their places. As everyone heads to their spots, Em makes sure Abby has her earpiece in, ensuring that she can hear important alerts. Em approaches the stooge in character, and without him turning to face her, he says in a creepy way that there were some plants that used to be here previously. She asked how he would know what was here, and he tells her that he was the one that planted them. Em is shocked by it, and the man goes for a handshake but continues to hold her hand without letting go for a long while. Em continues to explain that the place is a few months away from being opened. All the while, the stooge sees Abby up on the second story doing her ghost thing, and he gets a little freaked out. When a bucket is dropped, and he looks away, giving Abby time to drop out of sight and move on to her next placement. He asks who the girl is, and Em acts as if she has no idea what he is on about. The prank is starting up really well. Em then leads the stooge to the main office where he is then finally properly introduced as Rowan, where conversation starts with him stating that he had dreaded coming back. She apologizes for not realizing that he had worked there previously. He doesn't confirm that he worked there, but instead states that this was home for a while. Yes. It was my blind guess at this point that he was once a patient. She explains that him knowing his way around the site would be a definite advantage for him, and he affirms that he does in fact know all the nooks and crannies and all the hiding spots, and finishes off by saying, all the places you should never ever go, where all the bad children get locked up, and then stares at a picture on the wall. Em is obviously concerned and asked if everything is alright. Now, unfortunately, the actor playing Rowan, while he is perfectly intense and unsettling, he is a little hard to understand as his articulation isn't really there. And unfortunately, I couldn't get subtitles to work. But effectively, after rewinding a few times, I found out that he is demanding to know why Em is being so nosy and what his past has to do with anything with this job. Very obviously scaring Em as she backs up and looks visibly scared. The phone rings and it is Marcus, saying that he didn't realize the stooge was going to be so special, and while staying in character, Em tries to plead with him that they abort and not go ahead with the prank with this stooge, as it is obviously not safe. Marcus again is being a douche and says that it is all playing well on screen. And of course, that is how he would see it, being nice and safe in the nerve center, while the only people out in the danger zone with what is clearly an unhinged man are all women. Em advises Rowan that she will be back with him shortly, and he says as she is leaving, "You don't know how much pain was inflicted here." As Em goes to confront Marcus, they start the haunting prank on Rowan. But you can see that the letter opener is now missing from the desk, meaning Rowan is now armed. Em is furious that she didn't know that the stooge worked there previously, and Marcus is an unapologetic dick about it. I honestly find it hard to believe that after having a gun pulled on an actor that he would be this big of a dick. But let's be honest, it's quite possible, depending on how self-important the person is. We then cut to Rowan walking down the hallway with the Echo Ghost laugh track going and flickering fluoro lights, and a blonde woman named Suze is in position for her next move. Same with Abby. Rowan steps on his mark, and Suze throws the bowl, but then slinks off quickly to her next hiding spot. He looks down her part of the hallway to see nothing, but then turns to see Abby dressed as a ghost with her arm around the bowl, where she then lets out the goofiest laugh I have ever heard and runs off up the hole, out of sight. Rowan chases after her, and Marcus is pleased to see this all going according to plan. In the room Rowan ends up in, an antique rocking horse is rocking back and forth, and he is looking around, very obviously frightened. He almost spots the cameraman hiding behind a rack of coats, but then looks out the window, back at where he had planted those plants. And Marcus starts saying his name over the intercom to freak him out. And it is then Abby's turn to scare him. She steps out, sneaks up behind him, and starts screaming. It is then through the CCTV that Em realizes that the letter opener is missing and tried to push people out the way to warn Abby. But it is too late, and Rowan stabs Abby multiple times in the chest. He kneels over her to finish the job. When Em calls over the PA system to put the knife down, and Marcus pleads with him to leave her alone, as it's all a prank. Rowan then notices the cameraman and starts strangling him to death with a tie. Em runs down to try to stop him from going any further. We then cut to her. As she's running down the halls, you hear glass breaking, and she decides to arm herself by breaking into the display case and picking up a lobotomy pick. She makes it into the room where the attack took place. The cameraman named Tony is now up the ladder, hanging and very obviously dead, and is looking to find Abby. Marcus tells her not to look out the window as she approaches, and it is then shown that Abby was thrown out the window. Marcus apologizes to her and tells her to get moving out of that place as Rowan is returning. Em accuses Marcus of knowing something was wrong with Rowan, and he tries to defend himself by saying that too much was at stake and that he was trying to make it more psychological. Em asks who he is, and Marcus responds that yes, Rowan used to work there, but that he was also a patient that had committed certain crimes. So, ding ding ding! I got that one right. I do enjoy a bit of predictability in a horror, if I'm honest. I find it oddly soothing. Unfortunately, as Marcus continues to explain about Rowan, the backing music is too loud, making it hard to follow what he is saying. But he does tell Em to get back to the nerve center. Em states that there is a camera on her and she is looking right at it, and it is then that they state that they have lost connection with some cameras. However, this camera does look different to the ones that they typically use. Em comes across Suze and lets her know what's happening. As Em is taking some steps away, Rowan breaks the glass, grabs Suze and slits her throat. Em runs as far as she can and comes to a heavy sliding door, and makes it through, as Rowan drops the knife and goes for an axe. She is in with one of her other crewmates, JD, who then comforts her over the loss of Suze, assuring her that there was nothing she could have done to help. A laptop shows a connection to Marcus, and Em demands to know where the police are. They try to cover, saying they called Vicky, and she needs to speak to the lawyers first before they can do that, wanting to ensure they get the best possible outcome for everyone. Understandably, Em is furious. I then ended up wondering if it was going to be a fake out, where it turned out that Rowan was not actually a psych patient and that Em was the stooge. It would honestly explain why everyone except for Em seems so calm. The camera then shows Rowan break in and kill both Marcus and Dick off screen. Em tries to reason with him, but Rowan terminates the connection. JD and Em make a break for the van, which they make it to, when they realize that they don't actually have the keys, and JD runs back to get the spare set. Em locks the door, and then Rowan sits up and calls Em by her character name. Freaking out, she then stabs him in the hand with the lobotomy pick and runs away. It was at this point that I found out I was right again, and he puts in an earpiece and angrily tells them that he was just stabbed in the hand, and you see Marcus and Dick having a little laugh at the situation, but then get him to confirm where he was stabbed. They then reach out to JD to tell him to keep Abby company as Em is on her way back to him. It then cuts to Abby sitting on her bed where she is watching more videos on her tablet, and Rowan demands the attention of Marcus and Dick, and then corrects them that his name is not Rowan, it's Trent, and that he wants to be there for the big reveal, but he is, and I quote, crucified to a fucking car seat. Marcus wants him to stay in character for longer to get to the reveal, and Trent loses it, saying he needs to call time now. Or, after he goes to the hospital, he will go to his agent and his union and make his life hell. Marcus pulls the douche maneuver again, classic Marcus, and turns it on him, saying that he knows he doesn't want to be the cause of the death of a popular TV show, and he definitely knows he doesn't want to be branded as difficult. Which is just dumb. Dude is legit injured. Time should be called. And if they did call it at that point, things may have gone differently. Just saying. Trent seems like he's agreeing, but then turns off the camera and Marcus acts like a little bitch about it all. We then see Trent pulling the lobotomy pick out of his hand, and it is the most believable performance so far. Like, bravo. Very Australian in reaction. And I know I reacted the exact same way that time that I had to pull a sewing needle out of my foot. Always keep an eye on your shops, kids. We then see a man in a mask walking towards the van, recording Trent, and another one comes up behind him to stab him in the back of the head, blade protruding through his mouth. We then switch back to Marcus, who is now following up with JD, asking if he's with Abby yet. He radios in to say that he's almost there. We then see another masked freak follow up behind, but they seem to stay put as JD enters. Abby is told to wait for her mark for her resurrection, as it will be the high point of the show, and she seems pretty excited for it. Tony is asked how he is going, and he complains about how cold it is and asks them to hurry up. They then try to get a hold of Suze, and then Marcus goes to talk to Trent, giving some stupid line about creative differences. Like, no, Marcus. Dude got stabbed through the hand. He needs a doctor and a tetanus shot. Dick then notices camera lights show up on his feed, and you see a brief glimpse of a glitch with the masked freak symbol. Em makes it to the kitchen where she sees Dick on the webcam feed, and he tries to shut off the feed, but he knows Em has seen him. He radios Marcus to tell him, but then notices all the masked freaks pointing their cameras at their cameras. And before he can do anything, a masked freak comes up behind him, loops some wire over his head, and manages to cut his head in half with it. Think the beginning of Ghost Ship. But that is impressive, because cutting through bone with wire could not be easy. Dude must have been hitting the gym a lot. We then cut to Em finding prep videos for the prank, and it pointing out quite clearly that she is the stooge, and she is quite obviously pissed. She angrily paces around the kitchen and is yelling at Marcus, who cannot hear her, and she then throws her earpiece away. We then cut to the Masked Freaks HQ, and they send off a bunch of them to finish dealing with the scare campaign crew. Marcus opens the van, assuming that Trent is being dramatic, saying that Em barely even touched him, only to realize that he is dead. He tries to radio Dick and grabs out his phone to see no service. And then he finally notices the masked freaks coming out. He knows shit is bad and he tries to run away, briefly getting cornered by freaks, but manages to somewhat get away. Em sees him, and she is still furious as she punches him and starts yelling about how he is an asshole and everything else you would imagine would come out at that point. Marcus tries to point out that the masked freaks are there and are killing them. Em doesn't believe him and comes up to a masked freak, assuming it is another actor, but snaps out of it pretty quickly when she gets shoved to the ground, and more masked freaks emerge. The third plot twist. They are now being hunted by the masked freaks, and the danger is real. Dun dun dun! They start closing in on them, and one freaks appear to be given direction through an earpiece, and then they disperse. Em refuses to leave and wants to get the rest out alive. Marcus seems to agree, but mostly he just wants to flee. They find their way to the room that JD and Abby were hiding in, and find JD dead with a blade sticking out of his chest that has a camera attached to it. They watch the video and see they take Abby and kill JD. Abby is still alive. Marcus explains that they couldn't have been here by accident, and that someone would have had to have told them where they were, and then he gets a call from the masked freaks, telling them to come to the control room if they want to see Abby again. We then see masked freaks setting something up, and then cut to Marcus and Em going through the display case looking for more weapons. and Marcus seems mad because the prank was going perfectly until the freak showed up. And then turns his words back around on him, saying, "You always say the best ones go off script." And makes it to the control room with Marcus, and all the screens are showing the Masked Freak's logo. M points out that Marcus appears to be bleeding, and then they realize that the blood isn't from him, it's coming off Suze, who has been hanged and her eyes gouged out. A screen shows Tony, and he is asking if the prank is back on. They then try to communicate with him via the earpiece, but he can't hear them. A masked freak then comes in, and Tony tries to talk to them, but then gets cut in half by the masked freak's chainsaw. I just want to know why he didn't try to back up to avoid it. Like, sure, he was behind wooden slats, and wooden slats aren't going to stop a chainsaw, but wouldn't your natural reaction be to back up? Not overly relevant, but it's been on my mind. The screen then changes to the main masked freak. M demands to know where Abby is, and they say that they will get to that, but they wanted to thank them for being such compelling victims. Proper villain pauses and all. It is just so edgy, and not in a good way, as the dialogue was a bit strained from here, in my opinion, if I am honest. Abby is then dragged to a coffin where she then gets buried alive, and the main freak says analytics show that viewers love a ticking time bomb, and that Abby only has 5 minutes before she suffocates. As M and Marcus run down the holes to get to Abby, this is supposed to feel tense, but meh. A masked freak is following them and gets ready to attack. However, he notifies them by accidentally knocking a wheelchair. See, kids, face paint is safer and won't impede your eyesight. Play it safe this Halloween. The freak turns on his handheld buzzsaw, and the blade flicks out. M then ends up stabbing him and pulls his mask off. The masked freak is a teenager at best. They then flee again, and we see Abby in her coffin again, and M and Marcus approach, trying to dig her out as quick as they can. Credit due where it is needed. At least the masked freaks left them shovels. They manage to dig her out in time for her to not suffocate, and then a mob of masked freaks come out. Marcus states that they got the girl, they won, they shouldn't die. And the main masked freak states that they never said that they wouldn't die, but then proceeds to turn around and offers M a chance to join them. And she asks about Marcus and Abby, and is told that she can only take one with her. Main masked freak needs to get it together. If you say you aren't going to live, then they should all die. But apparently, this won awards, so what do I know? Marcus says, "You know what to do, M." And she kisses him. Abby begs M to come back to her, which she does because Marcus has decided to no longer be a douche and sacrifices himself. The ladies get into the van and drive away. M states that they are going to go into town and get the police. We then switch to seeing Marcus on a metal slab tied up. He demands to know what is going on, and you can see them dismembering the deceased crew. He then yells at them that they need more than just blood and cruelty to be liked, and asked where the twist was. They then turn on the video of Abby in the coffin again. Except this time she stops and asked if they were sure it was believable, because she can go again. You can then hear a voice saying that she did great, but she can go again if she wants to. Marcus doesn't even seem shocked. He just says that she's actually pretty good, as they drag him to the cremation chamber, where he's resigned to the fact that he's going to die. They then switch back to M and Abby, where M notices a camera, but is uncertain about whether it's still working or not. And thankfully, that's where the movie ends. All in all, this movie was fine for a cheesy horror movie where you are more than likely scrolling on your phone, but it isn't anything outrageously spectacular. The acting was mid at best. The only acting I found believable was from Megan Warner as M and Josh Quongtart, who was playing Trent playing Rowan. They were both great, like 10 out of 10 their acting skills in this movie. Everyone else just seemed a bit two-dimensional in my opinion. The kill count included 3 in the beginning by the masked freaks, followed by 4 on screen and 2 insinuated, racking up a total of 7. But was any of it impressive? By my standards, I liked Dick's death, but I still wonder how you get through the skull with wire like that. As for the big bad, the main masked freak, I found him to be something that exists more in an edgy teenaged boy's sketchbook. But unfortunately, still way too two dimensional for me. Overall thoughts on this, though, is that they really could have kept the masked freaks out of this, and instead have M snap and kill people, as that many twists in one plot line really did make it feel sloppy. So, all in all, I give it 1.5 stars. I will be honest though, this could also be a case of it would have been enjoyable just after one watch, but I watched it twice to get my notes down. So, if you want to watch it, as I said, you can rent it on YouTube, Amazon, or Apple TV, but spend your own money how you like. I'm not here to tell you what to do. But that is all I have for you this week. I will be posting relevant pictures on Facebook and Instagram at What You Should Know Australia. Keep up with all the updates and vote on the upcoming poll. I will be asking what movie you want me to review at the end of this month. And you can do so on my Twitter at Whiskerpod. That is WYSKAPOD. If you have any suggestions or you just want to reach out for any reason at all, you can do so at my email, which is whatyousshouldknowaustralia@gmail.com. But until next week, stay safe and stay hydrated. Bye!